he'll be along at the 4 o'clock session. We aware of any others? No. Okay. Oh, sorry. Live feed. Has it started? It is. Good. Thank you. Okay. Declarations of interest. We'll take those in the normal way as we progress through the meeting, unless somebody has something they really need to say at this stage, and we'll take them as we progress. We'll move then to agenda item 3, which is a report from the head of planning, and it's one item for decision. It's the temporary structures and changes of use regulation. And I think Roisin, you taking that? Yeah. So Roisin, you fire ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Members will recall in July 2020, members agreed to approve a planning guidance note for businesses and other organisations in relation to the erection of temporary structures and the undertaking of temporary changes of use. The guidance note was prepared to help businesses and organisations to deal with the challenges presented by the COVID-19 pandemic, in particular the need to provide more physical space to accommodate social distancing and safer operations. It is proposed that temporary structures changes of use should be permitted without any need for planning permission for up to 6 months initially in certain circumstances. The deadline set out in the guidance has been extended on a number of occasions, most recently in February 2022, when members agreed to a further extension until September 2022. Whilst restrictions have been relaxed, officers consider it would be prudent to extend the timeframe for a further 6 months in order to monitor the potential impact of the pandemic for the further temporary period. This would mean that the provision of temporary structures, buildings and temporary changes of use would be permitted without any need for planning permission up to the 28th of February 2023 in certain circumstances. It is recommended that members approve the extension of time until the 28th of February 2023. Thank you, Chair, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, Councillor Cosby.
Thank you, Chairman, and thanks for the report. Appreciate that, and appreciate that this was designed for a time of pandemic. I think certainly from our perspective, it is welcome that it is going to be extended. However, given the pending crisis that we do have in relation to energy and soaring costs, particularly for businesses, I wouldn't be objectionable to extending that for a period of a year to allow the flexibility for businesses who may find themselves as having to adapt in some way to try and continue on, if it allows that bit of breathing space for a period of time. And then at that point in time, it would be brought back for a review to see where we are. I am just conscious that there are going to be a lot of businesses who are currently under pressure, particularly in the hospitality industry. And much of this support actually was for them around trading on the street and all that type of stuff to increase capacity and all that sort of stuff. So I think, continuing that on for a year would be beneficial to them, and then reviewing it at that point. So I make that a proposal, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, members, so we have a proposal that we proceed for a year. Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I propose our second Councillor Cosby's proposal. Sure, an extra 6 months will not make any difference, and it could help businesses out in the meantime. So happy to second, Chair.
Okay, that's fine. We will make that amendment then and move it to the full year period. Moving on then to agenda item 3.2. These are items for information. So we have an update on planning caseloads. And sorry, Councillor Cosby, just before I move on.
No, sorry, it is on this item on the planning caseloads, Mr. Chairman, if you permit me. Okay, thank you, and I appreciate the list that is before us and the information, and that there have been pressures on caseloads, but I think we have seen some movement in terms of the delegated lists, and those eligible for call-in or not has, I think, Roisin, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but has made improvements in the department in terms of trying to turn those around quicker, and that's to be welcomed. I do, just in terms of planning caseloads, I know that there are some applications in the system that have been in the system a significant amount of time and have been scheduled to come to this committee and have been pulled at short notice due to late information. I'm going to be explicit and name Guildford and the filling station in Guildford, And just to put on record that I'm deeply frustrated that we can't get a resolution to this planning application, and that if additional information comes in, it should be appended to a report and it should be considered by this committee in future rather than being withdrawn from a schedule and not being brought into this forum. It is for elected members to decide in terms of the planning decisions around that. I suspect, well, we know it meets the criteria to come here anyway, and I'd like to see that as soon as possible brought forward to give closure on the application and to take it off the planner's desk, because I know you desperately want it off. And I'm looking at Sinead thinking, I think you would just love that off your desk. And the sooner we get it back here, the better. It's gone on far, far too long. There's been too many delay tactics used in the case. And I am not giving an opinion or expressing an opinion in any way, shape or form. I have not been involved or been consulted by anybody in relation to being for or against this application. I'm just simply making the point that there are a number of applications that have been delayed due to late pieces of information. If that information can make it to this committee, we, I think, are going long enough and are experienced enough now to be able to make a judgment on that basis of information. So, Mr. Chairman, if my comments could be noted on that action. There are several others that are being held up by judicial reviews and others, and I will declare an interest as having lobbied on behalf of Portadown Elim Church for their application. That is now in the system far, far too long, but I understand is being held up by a judicial review that is ongoing. So those things need to get off planners' desks. They're consuming time and they're really impacting on targets. So the sooner we can deal with those, the better. Thank you.
Okay, look, I have a couple other speakers, but what I'm going to do before that, I'm just going to get the update on planning caseloads, and then we'll discuss that if that's okay. Rose, is Sinead taking that? Yeah. Okay. And then we'll bring in our speakers after.
Thank you, Chair. Just for a way of update, officers are continuing to operate a rota system in the planning offices, and this week we are now back in the office 3 days a week and remotely 2 days. The planning offices are still continuing to operate as normal, and we are open to the public as normal. As regard to the key stats, the number of valid applications received during the period of 1st of April 22 to the 25th of August 22 was 556. So this is 206 less than for the same period last year and one more from the same period the year before. The number of applications decided during the 1st of April 22 and the 25th of August 22 was 652, which is 69 more than for the same period last year and 379 more than the year before. There was 106 decisions issued between the period of the 1st of August 22 to the 25th of August 22. I think it says April in your report, but that's a typo, so I do apologise. And 84 valid applications received during the same period. So I suppose the bar chart at Appendix B illustrates well how the applications are continuing to be processed in a faster scale and increase the number of applications and plan decisions, while at the same time preserving the quality of our decision making and respecting the need to follow due process. At the end of August, you can see we had 996 applications still currently in the system, and I'm happy obviously to take any questions that you obviously may have. Thank you.
You, Sinead and Alderman Anderson.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Sinead, for your report. I would like to also focus on what my colleague, Councillor Cosby, was referring to. It's a case that the one in Guildford, and I'm not taking any part in decisions on it, because in my times, in my role as an MLA, I was involved in this. But you know, it must be 6 years now, and it's causing a lot of disruption. We have people in the Guildford area, and they're having to drive to different places even to get the fuel, and they want this a decision taken on this. Well, it should have been taken a lot before now. And I know there's issues with COVID and staff and all over the years, but that amount of time, if there are issues, we'd hope that they would be ironed out and that it could come before committee and the decision taken on it. And I think that length of time we should be able to get a decision, at least 6 years. And I'd like to think we can get them turned around in a lot less than that. So that's just a few comments I'm making on it, Chairman. Thank you.
Yeah, and look, members, I get what people are saying, and But it is, I mean, it has to be concluded by this committee, you know, and members that will be considering it, you know, will be given a view in this crucible, if you like, at this stage without fully considering what other information is due to come before it. And that will come in time. And I get the frustrations along, you know, that go with that, and I appreciate Alderman Anderson, you won't be taking part in that debate, so it's important that that's noted. But it's important that as a committee member, we just respect the whole operation of the committee, and you know, it will come back in due course, hopefully sooner rather than later, in terms of just the general operations and statistics that we're getting each month in terms of the performance of the planning committee. So I'm content that it is going to come back in time and be dealt with in a full and transparent way. Alderman Barr.
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate the conversation. I was just wondering, because it is a live case and it was supposed to be here, I'm just wondering, should we be going into confidential business to seek some form of legal advice or guidance on?
No, to be honest, I'm content that we don't talk about it anymore in this regulatory, you know, end of the meeting, to be perfectly honest. And, you know, Councillor Cosby's made his point, and he's been quite adamant that it's purely from the performance of the committee's aspect, you know, in terms of time frames. So I'm content that is a reasonable comment. I'm content based on Alderman Anderson's comment that he isn't going to be taking part. What I'm less content about is just a general discussion on the pros and cons of it in this part of the meeting, particularly due to the fact, you know, we will be considering it as a live application in the proper part of the meeting in due course when that happens. So I would, to be honest, I'd like it not to be spoken about any further, just based on the fact that it will be talked about in its proper place at the appropriate time. Councillor Nicholson.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman, and thanks, Sinead, and you'll be glad to hear I'm not going to speak about it. So look, Sinead, you said about 3 days in, 2 days remote. Obviously, we're in a new era now, a new way of working. Do you see that as, you know, obviously you've discussions, you know, do you see that being a continual thing, a permanent thing, or what way do you see that going forward? And do you feel that way of working is efficient in that? Because obviously, you know, you've got files and you've different things you require to do work. I know myself personally, it wasn't efficient for me in my business, but I'm in a slightly different business end to you. So I just wanted to sort of a wee bit more sort of, you know, meet on that, just to say, you know, what is the vision for the planning department going forward in relation to this sort of hybrid working? So thank you.
Sinead, if you.
Yeah, I suppose like everyone, we're trying to get back to normality as much as possible. But the 3 days in now, with coming that extra day, we feel we need the extra day in the office just regards to decision issuing and things like that. But working remotely too, and that balance seems to be working well for us in the planning office. And I think that's reflected in the amount of applications that we're getting out the door. And you can see from April, there's 1,442 applications in the system. We're now down to 996. And that's even with staff vacancies and people off sick, and indeed during the summer months. So we think that balance is working very well for us in the system. So having that 3 days in and 2 out at the minute, it is, but obviously it's always under review, and the senior management team meetings do happen bi-weekly, and we do continue to reassess that and look at it. And if things continue to the performance, we will look at that very closely, and is there anything else we can do? We think this is maybe another wee step that we can take in the right direction as regards to getting those applications down and getting, as members say, the legacy applications in the system, getting them out the door and off our desks we all want. So at the minute, that seems to be working, but as always, it is under review in line with the head of planning. So, yeah.
Okay, Councillor, actually happy enough with that? Yeah, go on with it.
Thanks, Sinead, and I appreciate that. And obviously the figures do speak for themselves, but you sort of kind of half answered the next question, is like, staff-wise, are you fully staffed? What percentage are you at the minute? Because obviously we want to try and get that 974 down to 750 or under 800. Was that the sort of the magic figure? And we're all looking forward to the day that we see this in committee back at 800. But although from the look of the number of applications coming in, you know, there's going to be, it looks like there's a slight decrease there, but maybe that's just that month. But look, again, and just in relation to the staff complement, what percentage are you running at the minute? Just thank you.
Okay, Sinead, yeah.
Well, it's been advertised last week for 2 permanent HPTOs. As you know, Kyle Elder took over my position there in the majors team, so his position was up. And Gerald O'Reilly has left the majors team. He has resigned and gone to private practice. So that's another vacancy, but we're advertising those both jointly together, and it's both internal and external. So if, you know, the people internal don't make it, that external is underway. I'm shortlisting tomorrow for more PTOs. As you know, we had given 5 temporary vacancies. We have 3, I believe, Russian of those filled. There's another 2 that we're hoping to fill, and we're shortlisting for those tomorrow for prospect interview next week. There's a PTO came last week into the Armagh team on a temporary contract. She came from Malonoma, who's well reversed in the planning portal sector, settled in very well, and she now has already got a caseload. But as you say, we're hoping to fill those vacancies and especially those 2 HPTO ones very soon.
Okay, thanks, Sinead. Moving on then to agenda item 4. That's a report from Head of Building Control. So 4.1 is a street naming report, and Tom's going to take that one.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, members. Yep, item 4.1 is a request for naming of 6 apartments off Windsor Avenue in Lurgan. And the applicant's preferred name for the development is Park Manor. The reason for the development proposal name is that it overlooks the Lurgan Park. And the design has all the attributes of a typical manor house. But officers have also noted, and just to bring to members' attention, that this development has already been advertised as Park Manor, and officers have advised the applicant that this is wrong to do so, as the request is subject to members' approval. So having said that, the officers have assessed and deemed the proposal is compliant with the council's policy, and the recommendation therefore is for members' approval of Park Manor. I'm happy to take any questions members may have.
Okay, members, any questions, or have we a proposer and seconder for that decision? Alderman Twyvell.
I'd be very happy to propose. I think it's a sensible title, and it's sad that it has been announced in advance. It's wrong that that's happened, but I think it has been pointed out to the developer, so I'm happy with the name.
Okay, Councillor Duffy.
Yes, Chair, I'll just second the proposal.
Okay, then moving on then to item 4.2, and that's items for information, both these items. So new dwelling stats from the Department of Finance and Land Property Services. So Tom, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. As you said, this is the latest statistics from the Department of Finance, Land and Property Services, and to do with the new dwellings that have started and those completed right throughout Northern Ireland. And full reports that are available from Q1 of 2005 right up to Q2 of 2022. And notably in Appendix 2 shows that table 1.3 is for the new dwelling starts for each of the councils. Members will note that our council has consistently been in the top 4 right since 2015. In the last quarter, ABC Council were the 2nd highest performing council in that Q2, just marginally behind Belfast. Members will also note that in table 2.3, with regards to new dwelling completions, which equates to additional rates, that our council has consistently been in the top 3 performing councils. Notably again, our council has been the top performing council for Q2 and significantly ahead of all other councils. This report for members' information, but happy to take any questions members may have.
Any questions, members? Nothing? Okay. Happy enough. That's fine. I think that concludes the regulatory part. You still 4.3, sorry, 4.3, which is an update on the application workloads. Tom.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just to keep members up to date on the workload of the department. As you recall, in the previous months, that the month of June, we had a huge volume of workload. But to our surprise, given that huge surge that came in June and taking account of holiday period, etc., we still, in the month of August, received a further 257 applications, albeit as for the month of July, these were generally for smaller type projects. But, and to put it all into perspective, as I mentioned before, normally we, in a busy year, we receive notional construction worth about 250 million. However, in the last 5 months alone, we have already received well in excess of 300 million pounds worth of notional construction investment into our council area. And whilst this investment is very welcome, we're still working through the backlog for June submissions, so inevitably there'll be delay in response times, but we are working our way through those. The department has also continued to deliver the council's property certificates for the conveyancing of properties, and in the last 5 months we have received and administered 1,625 new applications, and we have issued 1,922 certificates to solicitors and agents relating to property sales. Again, Chair, this is for members' information, but happy to take any questions members may have.
Okay, members, any questions? I don't see any lights on, so I'm assuming that's a no. And just supposed to put on record, thanks, Tom, to your whole team for it's a lot of work you're getting through, and it means a lot in terms of the borough and the progress that's being made out in the construction sector. So that's good news. Any other relevant businesses? I haven't been made aware of any. So on that basis, there'll be a recess then until the start of our meeting at 4 o'clock. So thank you, members. Thank you. Okay, welcome along to our planning application phase of today's meeting. So we move on to agenda item 5, which is application for planning permission. Members of the public are advised that the Planning and Regulatory Services Committee is being held in the Council Chamber in Craigavon Civic Centre. However, due to COVID restrictions, the number of persons who can physically be facilitated in the chamber is severely limited. As a result, members of the public are only able to view the meeting on YouTube, and anyone wishing to address the committee has been invited in the first instance as an attendee via Zoom. Audio recording is being used to assist in preparing the formal minutes. Therefore, anyone participating in the meeting consents to it being recorded and being live streamed on YouTube. Also, during the course of this meeting, questions may be asked by councillors who are members of the Planning and Regulatory Service Committee, of planning officers, applicants for planning permission, objectors, or those speaking on their behalf. In doing so, councillors endeavour to ascertain the information which they feel is necessary to enable them to determine the application. However, members of the public should note that councillors will not reach a conclusion as to whether an application should be approved, refused, or deferred until the debate on the application has concluded. Okay, members, so that all being the case, a number of applications have been withdrawn due to information coming in. So that's affecting Appendix 1, Appendix 4, Appendix 7, and Appendix 6. So we're moving to Appendix number 2. And as I wasn't present for that first hearing, I'm not going to be chairing that particular one. So just in line with advice. So I'm content to vacate the chair now, and I'll hand over to my vice chair, Councillor Savage, and he will proceed with application Appendix 2. So thanks, Kevin.
Okay, members, so the chair says Appendix 2, this is application number LA08/2021/0830/0, and it's up for refusal. This is a take back, members, from last month, as you remember. And I'll bring Alderman Anderson in now.
Thank you, Chair. And just in relation to Appendix 2, I was not in attendance at that August meeting or the site meeting. So I'm not taking part in that. And also when I'm here, Appendix 3 coming up, I was not in attendance at the July meeting or at the site meeting. So I'll be leaving the chamber while these two applications are being discussed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Alderman Anderson. Is there any other declarations in relation to that application? Councillor Duffy?
Chair, I wasn't at the site meeting either, so I'll not be taking part.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Duffy. Councillor McGill?
I also was not at the site meeting, so I won't be taking part.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. I'll bring in Councillor or Alderman Barr first, and then I'll go to Zoom. Alderman Barr.
Same as the previous commenters, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Barr. Okay. Councillor McAlinton.
Thank you, Chair. Likewise, I wasn't at that meeting, so thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McAlinton. Councillor Lavra.
Same for myself, Chair. I wasn't at the site meeting either, so not able to take a part in this appendix. Thank you.
You. Okay, and I'll just finally bring in Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wasn't in attendance at Appendix 3. I know it's the next one up.
Thank you. So, members, we had at the site visits, we had myself. I'll just double check here, members. There's Alderman Twyble, Councillor Ian Wilson, Councillor Sam Nicholson, myself, and Councillor Cosby. And so I'm going to hand over to for that.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair.
This application is for an infill dwelling on the Mossbank Road, and it was presented to the Planning and Regulatory Services Committee in August and deferred for a site visit and additional information. The site visit was held on the 23rd of August to view the site and the adjacent lands in front of number 20 Mossbank Road. Further information was also sought from DAERA. However, farm maps are not available due to data protection and GDPR. DAERA confirmed that the land in front of number 20 was claimed for BPS Basic Payment Scheme in 2021 and are declared but not claimed yet for 2022. The recommendation is to refuse, and that is unchanged. And there are 4 reasons as set out in the main planning report. If members wish, I can go through the presentation again, but most members here I think were at the site visit.
Okay, thank you very much, Nicola. Okay, members, have we any questions for Nicola at this stage? Okay, members, there's Councillor Cosby. I'll bring you in.
Thanks, Chair. I just a note from last month, and I think Nicola did clarify this, but maybe just good for the record of the meeting. Can she confirm the updated information that was supplied by DAERA in relation to the site?
Thank you, Councillor Cosby. Nicola, I'll bring you in now.
Thank you, Chair. DAERA had previously confirmed the name, the farm business number and the address of the person claiming because of GDPR and data protection. I don't want to give those details out in public. You'd have to go into confidential for that, but I do have those details. And they have confirmed that they couldn't supply a map on the basis of that. But they have confirmed that the information they've given me is correct.
Thank you very much, Nicola. Councillor Nicholson.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. Thanks, Nicola. And Nicola, just for clarification, when you say that DAERA have confirmed that the land that was sort of discussed at the last meeting has been it's had a BPS, where that is, in relation to active farming. I'm assuming that's what that comes under. And it was claimed in 21, but declared for this year, 2022, but not claimed. So what's the conclusion to that? Is that obviously this is a farm and farmland, and is that the sort of conclusion that you come to in relation to because obviously the debate was, is this a field or is it a garden? And as I say, I'm not aware of them paying out on any gardens, if you know what I mean. But so just to clarify, just for sort of the committee, like, I know you made the statement that it's been claimed and declared, but what does that mean? What does that actually mean in the context of what the person who's put this application in? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. Nicola, I'll bring you in.
Well, on the map, and it is shown as a field when we checked originally, and that's why we've checked with DAERA. I have asked if this could be an error. They've said that this is what's shown on their records, and it's up to the farmer to make that declaration. And if there is, they wouldn't be aware of any error in relation to it. And as far as we would be concerned, yes, it would be a field and being an agricultural use rather than a garden.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Nicola. Councillor Nicholson, you're looking back in. Yep.
Yeah, look, thanks, Chair, and thanks, Nicola. And I suppose in relation to supplementary to that, then in relation to the planning policy, what difference does that make in relation to it being a field as opposed to being a garden? Just for clarification. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. And Nicola, I'll bring you in.
In terms of the requirement for infill, it has to have a substantial and built up frontage. There has to be 3 buildings, 2 buildings on one side and a building on the other side. In this case, there are 2 buildings to the north of the site, and they do require number 20, which lies behind this field. They require it to have a frontage to the road. And our opinion is that it doesn't have a frontage because there's a field in front. And on that basis, there is no gap site within a substantial and continuously built up frontage, and that fails the policy requirements.
Thank you, Nicola. Councillor Nicholson. Is there any further questions, members? If that's the case, there's no further questions. We'll move into the debate stage. And has anybody any thoughts? I'll maybe give mine for what they're worth. Look, I was out at the site visit, and you know, to me it looked like a field surrounded by a hedge, and it had a farm gate on it, and also number 20 served by a laneway adjacent to that field, and it was also ploughed a bit. But to my mind, it was a field rather than a front garden that gave curtilage. Now, that's only my thought. Members may think differently, but that's sort of where I stand on it anyway, members. I'll bring Councillor Cosby in at this stage.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Nicola, for the information. And I just note, just for the minute, just to note that I did arrive late to the site meeting. However, at that point, the rest of the members left, and Nicola brought me through this exact same information as everybody else had been given. And I just want to put that on record, that the information I received is exactly the same as others have received on that day. Not in contrast to your view, Vice Chair, it is, when I looked at the property, I did feel that it could reasonably be argued that there was an extended frontage down to the road as a garden with some quite nice mature trees and some vegetable patches and things like that in the area. Evident on the site also was a ride-on lawnmower, showing that, you know, residents intended to keep the grass short and keep it in a reasonable state. However, I do agree with your assessment in terms of the use of the site, particularly in light of the farm reference number as it being registered as a field, and also then the farm gate access to the site also. With that in mind, that would give me the distinct impression that it is being used for agricultural purposes. It certainly looks that way. It is actually separate from the application site and isn't linked to the application in any way, shape or form. So I don't think there's a prospect of that being put right, and that's a matter for the applicant and the tenant of that property. So on that basis, I do conclude that actually we are looking more at a field, despite what the aesthetics of it looks like at this point in time, and certainly that appears to be what the use is at this stage.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cosby. Councillor Wilson.
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair, for letting me in. Probably concur with my colleague and yourself. I think with the additional information from DAERA, it probably rubber stamps that this is being used as, or being claimed as, a portion of agricultural land. So I think in that light, it's quite clear with information, additional information received. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Nicholson.
Yeah, thanks, Vice Chair, and like yourself and others, I think the site visit was very, very useful. We did see a lot, as you said yourself. There was a hedge bounding the land, and there was a gate, an agricultural gate into the land, and I think, given the DAERA information that has been confirmed this evening, I think you've nowhere else to go but conclude it is a field. And as I say, I concur with you visually. I saw it as a field as well. And I suppose in relation to the planning policy, I haven't been on this committee for some time now. I do recall that, you know, in infill sites, we have refused some on the grounds that there was one that didn't have a frontage. It was just a laneway linking on to the road. So I suppose in all things being equal, Vice Chair, I suppose realistically, we're sort of heading towards a conclusion. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholson, for that. Okay, members, there's no further lights on. I think we'll move into decision stage. Has anybody any proposals to make? Look, I'll not delay this any further. I propose that we accept the recommendation as outlined in the officer's report. Councillor Wilson.
I second that proposal, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Is there any counter proposals? Are we all agreed? Agreed. Okay, members, we'll just have a moment till we get the chair back in, and we'll move on with the applications.
Okay, members, we're moving on then to Appendix Item 3. No, I'm only doing what Ruth tells me here. No, that's grand. Yeah, agenda item or appendix number 3, application LAO 2019-0632. So again, members, let me get this brought up on my screen here. So well, okay, so Councillor Wilson, you've declared on this, and then Alderman Anderson, he's already out. So Zoom as well. Okay, hold on. We have Councillor Peter Lavery.
Thanks, Chair. It's just submit the same declaration of interest that have every time this application has come to committee in relation to, I think it was a family member of the applicant or contacted me at the time, but I let them know that I couldn't engage with them due to being a member of the planning committee. Therefore, I feel I can take part in the debate and so on. But the same declaration I committed to, I said the other 3 times it came to committee, just for the record. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And then I'll take our other Zoom contributor, Councillor Declan McAlinton.
Thank you, Chair. Likewise, Chair, I wasn't at the initial meeting nor the site meeting, so thank you.
Okay, and then Councillor McGill.
I wasn't at the site visit, so I won't be taking part.
Councillor Duffy.
Same here, Chair. I wasn't at the site meeting, so I won't be taking part.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cosby.
Thank you, Chair. I haven't taken part in any of this because I think this actually came to committee before I was brought back on. So I've missed that as well. So I will not take part either.
Thank you. And then Alderman Barr.
Same reasons as before. I wasn't at the previous meetings, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate your cooperation and all that. Alderman Twyble.
Yes, I would need to request a record in this. I'm not sure what I was in attendance at in this case.
Well, based on my records, Alderman Twyble, at the site visit, it was brought before committee on the 2nd of June, and then there was a site visit on the 22nd of June, and myself, Councillor Savage, Councillor Lavery, and Councillor Nicholson were present at that, along with Roisin Hamill, the Principal Planning Officer. So yeah, you hadn't attended the site visit.
Okay. So I would have to declare that I can't take part either. Okay.
Yeah, that's noted. Thank you. So on that basis, members, I will then pass to Roisin to discuss this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, members, can I correct an error in the report? You will note that the recommendation states refusal. This should actually state approval. Also, members, I would like, with your approval, to add a further sentence to the end of the proposed condition number 7, which should state the operator of the development hereby approved shall provide to the planning authority a copy of the independent consultant's shadow flicker assessment within 2 months of the commissioning of the report. Members will recall this application was originally presented to members in March 2022 with a recommendation to refuse. At the meeting, it was agreed that the application be deferred to allow for further information. The application was presented back to members on the 6th of June with an unchanged recommendation to refuse, where it was agreed that the application be deferred to allow a site visit by members to take place. Following the site visit, the application was presented back to committee in July 2022 with an unchanged recommendation to refuse. And following discussions, members resolved to overturn the officer's recommendation and grant planning permission. The primary reasons for reaching that decision are set out in detail in the report. Members requested that draft conditions of approval be presented for their consideration, and the proposed conditions are set out in detail in the report. Members are recommended to approve the draft conditions as set out. And as we've all previously been to the site, I don't have a presentation on this one. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, members, to my knowledge, with no one else speaking on this in terms of their for or against. So based on that, then we'll move to any comments you wish to make at this stage, members, on that. Don't see any comments. I want to move to the decision phase. Councillor Nicholson.
Yeah, Chairman, thank you. And thanks, Roisin, for the report. I think I'm happy to propose a recommendation, Chairman, including the amendment that obviously Roisin outlined at the committee tonight, in particular the approval amendment. I read the papers last night and I thought there's something wrong here. So, but anyway, look, I'm happy to propose the approval of this, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. Have we any other comments in this phase or any seconder or alternative proposals? Well, sorry, with Councillor Lavery, there's on the screen. You want to come in now, Councillor Lavery?
Yeah, it's just to second that proposal from Councillor Nicholson with the amendment included. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. No other lights on or any other contributors, so we'll take that as proposed and seconded with all the additional changes there that Roisin had highlighted. So on that basis, then we will move on to Appendix 5, which is application LA08 2022-0308. Oh, sorry, yeah, we'll have to bring in anybody that has left, sorry. So we'll just pause for a moment and do that. Okay, as said, we welcome Alderman Anderson back to the meeting. So we will proceed then on Appendix 5, and that's Liam McCrum's application. So Liam, we will invite you to make your comments at this stage.
Thank you, Chair. This application is a site for outline planning permission at Lisnagate Road, Banbridge. The application site seeks solely to establish the principle of development of the site, and details on site and design will be reserved matters. This application site lies in the open countryside as defined in the area plan. Policy CTY 1 of PPS 21 identifies a range of types of development which in principle are considered acceptable in the countryside. One of these is in accordance with Policy CTY 8 for infill development. Policy CTY 8 requires that 4 specific elements be met. In relation to the first test, officers consider that there is not a substantial and continuously built up frontage along this section of Lisnagate Road. Number 1, Lisnavar Road is separated from the application site by the Lisnavar Road. Consequently, there is a break in the frontage of the development along Lisnagate Road. The proposal therefore relies on development along 2 frontages. Therefore, there is no line of 3 or more buildings along a singular road frontage to meet Policy CTY 8's definition of a substantial and continuously built up frontage. Members are advised that this is the established position of the PAC, in that where there is a break in the frontage of development by a minor road, the proposal therefore relies on development along 2 frontages in policy terms, and this is fatal in compliance with Policy CTY 8. Officers consider the proposed development fails the head no policy test of CTY 8 and therefore fails to comply with the SPPS and CTY 8 as a whole. This application is also be considered under Policy CTY 2A of PPS 21 that indicates a plan permission will be granted for a dwelling at an existing cluster of development provided all 6 criterion as set out in the policy are met. Criterion 1 requires that the cluster of development lies outside a farm and consists of 4 or more buildings, of at least 3 are dwellings. Officers are satisfied that this aspect of the criteria has been met. Criterion 2 requires that the cluster of development appears as a visual entity in the local landscape. The requirement that the cluster appears as a visual entity in this criterion suggests that the grouping has a distinct physical expression in the local landscape, again reinforcing the interpretation of a cluster of development being formed by the buildings. In this instance, officers consider the established form of development to be linear on 2 sides of Lisnagate Road from any public vantage point, and therefore the proposed development fails to comply with this aspect of the policy test. Criterion 3 requires that the cluster is associated with a focal point, and officers acknowledge that there is a focal point in this instance. However, it's separated from the cluster along a linear form of development at the other end. Criterion 4 requires that the site provides a suitable degree of enclosure and is bounded on at least 2 sides of other development in the cluster. Officers are satisfied by the existing mature boundary vegetation that would provide a suitable degree of enclosure. The proposal, however, is not bounded on 2 sides with other development due to the position of the Lisnavar Road, and therefore officers consider the proposed development fails to comply with the second test of Criterion 4 of CTY 2A. Criterion 5 requires that development of the site can be absorbed into the existing cluster through rounding off and consolidation. Officers consider that there is no existing cluster, in this case rather linear forms of development along the Lisnagate Road. The application site is at one end of 2 linear forms of development along Lisnagate Road. The development at the site would only further erode the countryside, extending the existing ribbon of development and altering the existing character. Criterion 6 requires that the development would not adversely impact on residential amenity, and in this respect, officers are satisfied. So in the round, officers have considered the proposed development fails to comply with Policy CTY 2A of PPS 21, specifically criteria 2, 3, 4, and 5, as set out in detail in the report. In terms of design, integration, and impact on real character, officers' opinion that the site does provide a suitable degree of enclosure and therefore is compliant with CTY 13. However, as previously noted, officers consider the proposed development would constitute a ribbon of development and fails to comply with Policy CTY 8 and therefore would result in a further erosion of the character of the area and is not compliant with CTY 14. In terms of access and parking, these matters would be reserved matters, and in any event we consulted with DFI Roads, who had no objections to the proposal subject to reserved matters applications. In terms of impact on amenity, officers are satisfied there's sufficient separation distance to neighbouring dwellings to ensure that development could be accommodated on the site without any negative impact. So refusal is recommended as per the report. If we can just take you through the PowerPoint. So you can see the location of the site within the general area. This is our site location plan with the site highlighted in red. It's just a blown up version of our site plan with the proposed access arrangements. And it's just another aerial photograph of the site. You can see it in the context of the surrounding buildings. So this is a view of the site along the Lisnagate Road. This is a view of the adjacent dwelling at number 15 Lisnagate Road. View of the site from the Lisnavar Road. View of the adjacent dwellings at number 1 and number 3 Lisnavar Road. And you can see a view of the site from the Lisnagate Road. These are a view of the existing sheds adjacent to number 15. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Liam, for your presentation. Now, with us today, we have Richard Parks from McAdam Stewart Architects, and he's going to make a representation as the agent in support of the application. So, Richard, you're very welcome to the meeting, and you have 3 minutes. You should be able to view a timer on the screen there. So when you start your remarks, the timer will commence, and then once the 3 minutes up, I'll have to bring your remarks to a close. But you're welcome, and you can start in your own time there. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, councillors. I would ask that the application refusal recommendation be reconsidered for the following reasons. The CTY policy allows for a small gap site with a minimum of 2 houses on a continuously built up frontage. We would note that there is a continuously built up frontage along the Lisnagate Road from Glenlochan Road Junction to St Mary's Church Lisnagate, which is some 12 properties total. The CTY ribbon development policy does not specifically note that a public road represents a break in road frontage. The policy lacks clarity in this situation, as it is not definitively stated. Should each application not be judged on its individual circumstance? The Lisnavar Road is a minor road which is both well screened on both sides and does not take the appearance of a standard public road T-junction. At its mouth, the Lisnavar Road is 5 metres wide and quickly narrows to 3 metres. This is more in keeping with a domestic driveway than a standard adopted carriageway. The laneway width means that the break has the appearance of a small single domestic access, which is acceptable within the policy. The site is elevated and extremely well visually screened, and a suitably proportioned single-storey dwelling would respect the existing development pattern and have little or no impact on the surrounding environment. This detail would be available for scrutiny at reserved matter stage. As noted by the case officer, views onto the site are restricted and there is mature vegetation established along the boundaries, which is compliant with CTY 13. The proposal does not pave the way for future ribbon development. With the aforementioned points in mind, I would ask the application be reconsidered. A site visit by the councillors may clarify my argument. Thank you.
Just waiting on the screen to go back there. Just talk, that should do it, okay. Yeah, there we go. Thanks very much, Richard, for your remarks. So we've no other speakers that I'm aware of on this one. So we'll move then to the members where you can ask your questions now at this stage. Councillor Nicholson.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks, Liam and Richard, for your presentations. Liam, I suppose this really lies on this road breaking the frontage. This is the key of this one. You give a bit more detail. You referred to obviously planning appeals. That's the direction that they obviously are going in, that these types of roadways breaking up the frontage is seen as then ribbon on either side type thing in relation to this. Just we have more detail on that, Liam, just to give us, sort of a wee bit more sort of, what the planning appeals have said on those things. And is there any, variation of width and, enclosure and things like that? Because it is quite a narrow one, I have to say, looking at the photographs. Thanks.
Thanks, Liam.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Nicklin. Yeah, essentially, look, the established position of the Commission is if there's a road that breaks the linear form of development, then it basically it gives you two separate frontages, and you have to consider them both as that. So therefore, if there's a gap within one frontage, it can't be reliant upon a second frontage at the other side of said road. So, I mean, there are numerous PSC decisions out there that have set that precedent, and that's something we have been following in the office really for a long time now.
Okay, Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to both gentlemen for the report, sir. Liam, just a question for you. The agent alluded to that the Liston of our road been small, that decreases in width as you go down it. It is, just for clarity, it is a DFA maintained road, and for the purposes of planning, it is considered a carriageway. Is that the case?
Yes, Councillor Savage, it's not a private laneway, it's a public road. And that's, I suppose, why we've adopted the approach we have in this respect.
Mr. Licker, you are late on you, is that okay? That's all right. Any other comments, members? We wish. Well, from my perspective, I was looking at this one, and it was taking me back to that site visit we had in Armagh, where there was a great deal of debate around a road, whether it was an adopted road, and it was more, it was leaning towards the clustering aspect. Just looking at the satellite imagery and that, it does look like a fairly intensively built up zone. I'm just wondering, could you, I know it maybe wasn't one of yours that time, but just, based on that aspect, I'm sort of struggling with, the differences in the two, for they were kind of similar in their appearances in terms of working out whether, the road seemed to be a factor. If it had been adopted, it was going to play in favour in that application, but because it wasn't, it was a blockage in that regard. But in this one, the road is playing a different part. It's preventing the application from being viewed in a favourable light. And I'm just wondering, under the clustering aspect, why that's the case. I get it from the gap site element, but just get a wee bit of clarity from the clustering element of it, given how intensive it looks in that position, and the fact that there is that space there that I can understand the argument from that perspective.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think maybe that aspect of the previous one that had been the committee was actually to do with the consideration of a crossroads in terms of compliance with CTY 2A. There is no crossroads here. We have a T-junction, which is maybe slightly different. What we do have is a community building. There is a church on one side of it, but it doesn't physically read as a cluster, and that's why we've arrived at the recommendation we have. Out of the 6 criteria, we've gone through them, and we've said it's failing to comply with 2, 3, 4, 5. So there was 4 aspects of the 6 criterion where this one was falling down, but the crossroads consideration wasn't really part of our deliberations here because there was none, but it was satisfying the aspect of the community building. So it wasn't really engaged, if you like, in this particular application, where the other one was dependent on it being a public road and a crossroads. And in that respect, if it was a public road, then it was coming down in favour on it. But here, because it's a CTY consideration in terms of the infill policy test, when we have that gap created by a road, we have 2 separate frontages, and unfortunately that's where this falls down. But I mean, it is a very well integrated site, there's no doubt about it.
No, thanks, and that clarifies it just on the crossroad point, so thanks for that. Any other contributions, members, at this stage? I don't see any other lights on, no hands up. Councillor Cosby.
We just make, Mr. Chairman, an observation just in terms of the Liston of our road. I think it's fair to say it's quite a lengthy stretch of road and runs from the T junction to the crossroads at the other end with the Ballygowan Road at that point, and it looks to be some distance. And I just want to be sure that I think you've clarified. I just want to be sure that in relation to this matter, whilst the images look like the carriageway or the road surface in that is well maintained and clear, that it is from the top end to the bottom end completely adopted, because at times you can have areas on roads, stroke laneways, that maybe the main road is adopted, but maybe there's a laneway off it. It's still called the same name, but it's not adopted at all. And sometimes that can cause some ambiguity in these applications. I just want to confirm that that's not the case here. And the other issue, I think, in relation to the frontage, for my mind, I think you've said this already, the road itself splits the frontage of the property on either side. Is that correct? And that is why this is being taken in consideration to this. Had this have been a laneway or not existed at all, we would be dealing with a cluster. Is that correct? Or infill, I beg your pardon.
Yeah, I suppose in terms of the first point, Councillor Crosby, whether the entire length of the road is adopted, I'm not 100% sure. I would have thought so. I mean, I suppose the section that we're dealing with immediately adjacent to the site is definitely an adopted road, and I suppose that would be the point that sort of we have focused on in dealing with DFI roads in terms of the consultation. But yes, you're quite right. If the road wasn't there, this would be an infill site.
Okay, any other comments, members? Not, then we'll move into the debate phase. Councillor Nicholson.
Yep, thank you, Chairman, and thanks, Liam, Richard. And I have to say, Chairman, I feel a wee bit of sympathy for Richard with this one, because I agree with your sort of, opinion, Chairman. When you look at it, another dwelling in there isn't going to really change the character of that area. But in relation to policy, and as Liam's pointed out, for continuance in the committee, the roadway or laneway, or whatever you want to call it, adopted road, it does split the frontage, unfortunately. But this is what we're sort of obviously going to face as a committee going forward. All the easy ones are gone, and it's going to be the difficult ones. And as I say, this is one of those ones where I have massive sympathy for the agent, and I have to say I would try it myself, but at this current time, it falls below policy. But again, I suppose he has the option of an appeal if the committee does decide not to accept the recommendation, Sharon. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I would agree with you on that point. I suppose it's, policy is to a point, and then you have the, you can come at it from a number of perspectives. And I look at it as a sort of maybe a weakness in the policy in that regard, that this, but we have to take the policy as it stands, obviously. But any other comments? Don't see any. Well, on that basis, members, we'll move into the decision phase. Any decisions or proposals on this one, members? Councillor Nicholson.
Yeah, Chairman, for obviously the reasons that were set out previously, and with a good discussion on it, I'm sure you'll agree, Chairman. But basically, I propose we accept the recommendation in front of us. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, so we have a proposal then to accept the planning officer's recommendation. Have we any other comments, members? See anyone on that base? I will second it in that regard. And I'm sympathetic with Richard in his position here, not of the applicant, because I always look back at other applications, and that's why I requested the clarity on that one from Liam. But we are dealing with the policy, so I will second that. And if we any other contrary or different proposals? I'm reading the room here. I'm not seeing any to hand. So on that basis, then we'll conclude on that appendix, and we'll move then to Appendix 10. Members, so and Darren, you're welcome to the meeting. So we move then to Appendix 10, and Kyle is presenting on this one. Kyle Elder, I just find you on the screen here. So Kyle, you can commence when you're ready there. Thank you.
This planning application is a Section 54 application which seeks to vary Condition 10 of Plan Approval LA 08 2021 1371F, which is granted plan permission for a retail unit at Millennium Way in Lurgan. The retail unit is currently occupied by Home Bargains. This planning application is required to go before the planning committee as it's seeking to vary a condition of a major planning application. Officers have taken that members have read the report in full, and as such, this is a synopsis only. Condition 10 of Plan Approval LA 08 2021 1371F required all deliveries to the site to be made between 8 a.m. and 7 p.m. The applicant seeks to vary Condition 10 by increasing the delivery hours in the evening from Monday to Saturday, so that delivery on those days could be received until 9:30 p.m. No changes to the delivery times on a Sunday are proposed. In support of this plan application, the applicant has provided a noise impact assessment. Officers have consulted with the Environmental Health Department, who have not raised any objections to the proposed revised delivery times. The noise impact assessment considered the noise impact to be low. Members are advised that the site is adjacent to commercial lands to the west, vacant lands to the east, a manufacturing business to the north. Playing pitches located at Lurgan Junior High School are opposite the site to the south, and the nearest dwellings to the site are Sheriff Drive and Queen's Walk, which are to the north and are separated from the site by a roadway, parking area and small green area. The nearest residential property to the unloading area is separated by a distance of 40 metres. Officers are of the opinion that the reason for Condition 10 to protect residential amenity will be maintained, in that despite the increase in delivery hours Monday to Saturday, the noise impact assessment shows the impact is rated as low. The restricted delivery hours will continue to ensure the residential amenity of neighbouring residents will continue to be protected. Officers therefore are of the opinion that this variation is acceptable, as the proposal will not prejudice the overall aim of the condition. Members are advised that no letters of objection have been received regarding this plan application. So overall, officers consider the proposal to meet the policy requirements of the SPPS and all other relevant planning policies, and on that basis, approval is recommended for the reasons outlined in the report and subject to the conditions suggested in the report. It's just a very short presentation, but the first slide then just shows the location of the site, which is southeast of Lurgan Town Centre. The second slide then shows an aerial photograph. So this is actually an older aerial photograph. The site has since been developed out, but it does show the local context. And then the nearest residential properties are to the north of the site. The next slide shows the site location plan, and the next slide then shows the approved site layout plan. So it's one retail unit, and it has been built out as shown there. That's just a photograph of the retail units, and to the east side of the main unit then on the next slide, you can see the main area of yard, which is the turning area for delivery vehicles, which is well separated from the residential properties. The next slide then just shows an area of the rear yard, which is quite linear in form. That shows Queen's Walk and the degree of separation between that aspect of the site and those dwellings. And then finally, this just shows the corner of the rear yard and the proximity to the dwellings in Sheriff Drive.
Okay. Thank you, Kyle. We have to speak in support of the application, Eamon Lockery. He's the agent. So, Eamon, I'm trusting you're online there if you want to put your camera on. Yeah, there you go. So, Eamon, again, as always, you'll have 3 minutes to make your comments, and a timer should be coming up on the screen there very shortly. And then when you start speaking, that clock will tick down. So you have 3 minutes and you can make your representations when you feel fit there. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I have only requested rights to speak in case there was questions that might be raised. Obviously, we support and welcome the case officer's recommendation and their diligent assessment of the application, and indeed the speed of the determination of the application and bringing it forward. And so we'd like to thank the case officer for that. But unless there's any questions, I'm happy to seek the committee endorse the case officer's report. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Eamon. That's fine, and I will allow members to ask questions as they see fit then as we progress through this application. So we'll move now to questions for anybody really, for the agent or for the planner. So any queries specifically, members you wish to raise? Okay, Councillor Nicholson.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. And thanks, Kyle. Just clarification, obviously the service area is to the rear of the unit, which is the closest point to the houses. There's no openings in that fence proposed along the back on the Sheriff Drive. All the access is going to come from Millennium Way, just confirmation.
Go on ahead, Ken.
Yeah, there's no openings proposed on the Sheriff Drive, and indeed all access is through Millennium Way.
Okay, members, any other queries on this one? Nope, not seeing any or any hands up online. So we will move then to debate phase. With any commentary? Councillor Nicholson again there.
Yeah, Chairman, thank you. And I suppose it's straightforward, and I suppose the key is there's no objections, and I'm assuming that they were consulted as part of this, for consideration of change of condition. So I think if given the detailed paper in front of us, I think it's a well presented application, and I don't see any massive issue with it for me, but that's my intent.
Any other comments, members, at this stage? I don't see any lights on, so we'll move then to the decision phase. Councillor Nicholson.
Yep, Chairman, happy to propose a recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, members? Not then, I'm happy to second that. So on that basis, are we any other proposals or counter proposals? Don't see any, so happy enough. Okay. Thank you, Eamon. You've inspired the Inquisition. So you're free to go. We'll move on then to we'll move on then to Appendix 8, which is being presented by Sinead. So, sorry, Alderman Anderson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's just that I would declare an unpecuniary interest in this particular item. As I was part of the committee that received the presentation some time ago, so I'm happy enough to stay in the meeting and to have an open mind on this application. Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. That's duly noted. We will move on then to Sinead, who will present this particular application. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Members may recall at the meeting of the Plan and Regulatory Service Committee held on the 6th of July 2022, it is agreed that this application be approved subject to the completion of a Section 76 legal agreement. The draft legal agreement and the environmental impact assessment screening determination was discussed in detail with the Council's legal team. On review of the screening determination, the legal team advised that while the factual content of the screening determination remained unchanged, in that the conclusions and impact therein is such that the application was not required to be accompanied by an environmental statement. For robustness and for completeness, the application could also be judged to fall under Schedule 2, Category 13, any change to or extension of development of a description listed in paragraphs 112 of column 1 of these regs, and the development is already authorised, executed, or is in the process of being executed. As such, that category has been now added to the environmental impact screen determination, and the officer's conclusions remained unchanged. So having regard to the above, officer remains satisfied the proposal complies with the SPPS and all other relevant planning policies. And I don't have any presentation, members, because it is, as it was before, it's simply just for robustness and updating the EIA determination. And the council senior council team asked that we may bring that to your attention. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Sinead. Have we any questions, members, on this one? Seeing any questions? We're seeing happy enough with that. So we'll move to the debate phase. I'm not detecting any debate. So members, I'll take a decision at this point on this application. Councillor Savage.
So thank you, Chair. I am content to propose that recommendation as outlined in the report. We've went through this before already, so I'm happy to propose it, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Chair. I am happy to second that.
Councillor Cosby.
Before the committee would agree to that decision, I'll absent myself from making or taking part in that decision, as I haven't been present in this application in future previous committees. Thank you.
Okay, that's duly noted as well. Thanks for that. Any other comments? I don't see any. So with that being the case, we'll take that as approved, and we'll move on then to Appendix 9. And Kyle, that's one of your ones again. So when you're ready, you can proceed. Thank you.
This plan application is a Section 54 application which seeks to vary Condition 8 of Plan Approval LAO 8 2021-1467F, which is granted plan permission for 72 residential units at the Deanery in Armagh. This plan application is required to go before the Planning Committee as it's seeking to vary a condition of a major planning application. Officers have taken that members have read the report in full, and this is a synopsis only. Condition 8 of LA 08 2021-1467F restricted works on the site between the hours of 7:30 a.m. and 5:30 p.m. on Monday to Friday, and 7:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Saturday, with no works to be carried out on a Sunday or bank holidays. This Section 54 application seeks to increase the operating hours on the site by 30 minutes on a Monday to Friday, so the operating hours in those days would be 7:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. Therefore, finishing at 6 p.m. rather than 5:30 p.m. as originally approved. The Environmental Health Department were consulted regarding this change, and they've raised no objections. Officers are of the opinion that the reason for Condition 8 will be maintained, in that the increase in 30 minutes will continue to ensure the residential amenity of neighbouring residents will continue to be protected. Plan approval LAO 8 2021-1467F is the third phase of development at the Deanery, and the proposed change is requested so that the developer can continue to work to establish working times on the wider site. Officers are of the opinion that this variation is acceptable and the proposal will not prejudice the overall aim of the condition. Members are advised that no letters of objection have been submitted regarding this plan application. So overall, officers consider the proposal to meet the policy requirements of the SPPS and all other relevant planning policies, and on that basis, approval is recommended for the reasons outlined in the report and subject to the conditions suggested in the report. Just have a short presentation just to show the general area of this site. So the first slide then just shows the location of the general area. So the site's within the settlement limits of Armagh. It's in zoned housing land to the northeast of the settlement. Again, the aerial photography is quite old in relation to this site. So this does show the existing development at Spurn Park and Melfont Crest to the east, but members are advised that phase 1 to the west and if it has been constructed, and phase 2 to the southwest is under construction. So the next slide then just shows the first phase and the second phase, which is under construction. That's just the site location plan. And then just to show the relationship between the proposed layout and the other, the second phase of the development, you can just see it there to the southwest. And then the final slide then just shows the relationship between the layout and the existing dwellings at Spurn Park and Melfont Crest. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Kyle. Any questions? Not seeing any. Just point of clarity, okay, just given we're heading into the winter months, so I note that the time scale will be 6:30. So you get into the middle of the winter, that'll be dark. In terms of the continuance of that, will there be? I'm sure there'll be some floodlighting or something used by the contractors to assist in all that. I'm just making an assumption. So with that being the case, has there been consideration given to existing residents and the overspill of light and that type of thing? I'm just curious, at that time of the year, and also, the road itself, the existing road, if they're drawing out soil and the conditions are wet, is that something we have any say over, or is that purely from a PSNA road safety perspective?
So the increase in time is just at 6 p.m. So the second phase of development actually, it also abuts some of the neighbouring dwellings. It actually had allowed its operation time by condition till 7 p.m. So this is actually a lesser time, but it's within the developer's working practices to go to 6 p.m. In terms of the other neighbouring dwellings, they generally back on to the neighbouring developments, so I wouldn't expect any adverse impact by lighting.
That's grand, thank you. Councillor Cosby.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just in terms of this, I'm assuming then when this application was initially consulted upon with both residents, and I'm assuming there would have been a significant consultation carried, a community consultation of some description maybe in this one because of the size and scale of the development. Will the change in operation times, because this obviously application has come after that consultation, after a number of conditions that may have satisfied the residents to prevent them from making an objection of some description. Would this change, through you, Chair, maybe be seen in the context of moving the goalposts on this? And I just want to make sure that it wouldn't adversely impact. I know you've alluded to that as well, but just if there's an expectation that the consultation taking place, the decision was made based on that, would this then have an adverse impact then on residents who maybe thought they were getting something and now they're getting something different? Thank you.
Okay, Kyle.
Yeah, in terms of this application, it was advertised in the local papers, and then neighbour notification letters were also sent. So the parties most affected will be aware of the application.
Okay, thank you, Kyle. Any other comments at this phase? I don't see any lights on, so we'll move then to debate phase. I suppose given what we've learned from Kyle there, on that basis, I'll be more content than that. It's just concerns relating simply to, it's a built up area and there'll be a lot of, heavy plant moving around and that type of thing. So it's just to protect existing residents, but I'm more content, given the level of consultation that had obviously taken place. Any other comments, members? Don't see any, so we'll move to the decision phase. Any proposals, members? Councillor Declan McAlinden.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Kyle. Thanks, Kyle, for that presentation. And yes, look, developers and construction are under severe pressures at the present time in delivering new homes, etc. And I suppose every minute counts. And this time extension will help alleviate some of those pressures. So I'm happy enough to propose on that basis, Chair. Thank you. The recommendation.
Thank you, Declan. Have we any other proposal, or will we a seconder? Well, on that basis, I'm happy to second Declan's proposal. So on that basis, then we will move on to Appendix 11. And Sinead is going to bring this application. So Sinead, then when you're ready, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The application is to amend condition 14 of previous planning approval, which was granted for the erection of 45 dwellings. And the reason it's before the planning committee is because it relates to a major application. Officers have taken that members have read the report in full, so this will only be a synopsis. Condition 14 required that a footpath to the Portadown Road be constructed prior to the occupation of the 25th house. This application now seeks to amend that condition to prior to the occupation of the 35th dwelling house. The applicant has provided a number of reasons why this is required, namely that COVID and the pandemic remains ongoing and the after effects are still causing issues in getting labour, specific materials and a backlog in getting supporting consultants appointed. So maintaining workflow on site is essential to avoid redundancies. The current workforce doesn't have the skill set to complete the work outlined in the condition and will require procurement via a specialist subcontractor who presently have ever-increasing extended deadlines. The present workforce employed on site will be suffering if they were to be made redundant. So the request via this application is to allow them to continue on site and maintain that workflow as well as utilise the knowledge already gained to build these particular houses. These works also require careful consideration as the service provider and utilities was also being affected by labour shortages and COVID. In conclusion, they require that this be extended to allow the occupation of a further 10 dwellings, but still deliver the footpath as agreed. Officers in consultation with DFI Roads are content to allow the occupation of an additional 10 dwellings on the site. This will not impact the overall accessibility of this site in accordance with PPS 3. You will also note there have been 2 objections to this planning application. Those objections relate specifically to the sewage network. Officers and indeed members can only consider the condition which is up for debate tonight and cannot consider the sewage system at present, which is the footpath. So therefore those objections are not applicable to this particular proposal. Officers in consultation with DFI Roads are content that this may be approved. I'll just take it through your presentation just to allow you to see where we are and what the footpath is, to see if you would agree with our recommendation. So the next slide just is in the general area. And it's just to the northeast of Armagh. It's actually not far from the site which Kyle took you through there at the last presentation. Next slide, please. So that there's it there to outline that triangular site. You probably may recall it was debated at some length. And that just is a site location plan outlining the entire site in red. So that is the layout as improved. So see at the very bottom there's a red link. That link actually takes you up onto the Portadown Road. Now there are considerable level differences, so that will take a structural engineer, etc., to plan, as well as making sure it's level. And the utility providers will also come under that bottom bit of the road. So they're looking just for a bit more time to complete that. Next slide, please. That just shows the view from the Portadown Road to the area where the footpath will come up. So you can see it have to be gradient slightly up to there, and then the houses is ongoing. And that's just from within the site looking towards the boundary. You can actually see there's an area on the Portadown Road. So that just shows the proximity of it. The footpath came about after negotiation with the developer that this should be provided just to allow the accessibility rather than right through the site and round on the Portadown Road, and that's envisaged in PPS 3. And that just shows a view towards the dwellings under construction to the rear of the site. Thank you, members.
Okay, thanks, Sinead. Alderman Anderson.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Sinead. Just for clarification, the original 25, how did that come about? How did we reach those figures originally? And we're asking to increase this now to 35, but is it the percentage of the overall development, or how does 25 come about? Or we get a number of these applications and there seems to be a figure put in there, but is there something set in stone that we need to have a percentage of the development, or what is it? Just to have it clarified.
Sinead?
Yes, thank you, Alderman Anderson. There's no standard as regards to so many houses have to be either built or occupied prior to a footpath link, unlike, say, for a right turning lane, which you have to have a 50. So basically it's negotiation between at that time the applicant and the DFI roads and ourselves. And we thought halfway through the development was a reasonable number. So it was a figure that we just discussed internally. And at that time, obviously, and the time that previous plan and permission was granted, that seemed feasible at that time. So that there's actually no figure in policy or no figure in the DCAN sector in regards to the threshold. And after that threshold, it must be put in place. It's just due to this discussion and the size of the development and where we are.
Okay, members, any other questions? Just wondering, see, I know we can't consider the sewage system, but just in terms of the addresses, were they from, from residents in the early phase of this development, or are they in separate postal addresses in terms of the wider environment around the site in question? I'm just curious.
There are objections that immediately abut the western side of the application site. Now we have opened, I suppose, an enforcement case ourselves just to ensure and have a discussion with the NI Water to make sure that the drainage system that's put in place is as approved and that is ongoing. But under this application, we can't. You will probably see from the report that one of the previous applications we approved was to ensure that the sewage system and NI Water were exactly in place. So it was in, situ at the time we were at the site visit along that boundary. But they're saying they can get smells, etc. So we want to actually have a discussion with the NI Water and the environmental health to make sure is that the case. And it's obviously from the same applicant.
Yeah, and I mean the only reason I know previously going back a number of years there's been some issue with sewage and flooding that down in Malafon. So it was just, I know it's quite close by. So it was just to get, but I'm content with that clarity. The council's being proactive in that regard, so that's good to know. Any other comments, members? Don't see any, so moving to debate phase. I suppose from my own perspective, I'm more content after hearing what Sinead's saying, for I know we are bound in terms of the material we can consider, but I know when an objection comes in, we always want to be sure that people's concerns are heard. So I'm more content that council is taking that proactive step along. The issue of sewage, and I guess incumbent on us to do our duty in that regard, and protect residents in that respect. Any other comments, members? Councillor Savage.
So thank you, Chair. I would agree with everything you said there, and I think the fact that there's a condition on it that it has to be started before the 25th of August 2025 gives the builder some time to comply with it, and also ensures that it's actually done. So we'll probably just watch this space, see what happens. So I agree with what you said, Chair, and I think it's a reasonable enough request at this time.
Okay, remember, not seeing any more lights, so if we could have moving the decision phase, I'll take proposal at this stage. Okay, Councillor Duffy.
Mr. Chair, I'll propose the recommendation. I'd second the recommendation, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any other proposals of these? Don't see any lights on, so we'll proceed then on that basis to Appendix 12. And Trudy is, sorry, Councillor Nicholson.
Yeah, Chairman, I'm going to declare a pecuniary interest in this one, so I will leave the meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, that's noted. So at this point, Trudy, you're free to give your present.
Thank you, Chair. This application is before you this evening as the application was submitted by the Armagh City Townscape Heritage Initiative. The contact details were given as an officer within the council, and planning officers have therefore taken the view that the application was submitted by or on behalf of the council. The teapot to which this application relates was a feature of Armagh City in the late 19th century when it was located in Scott Street. The teapot was removed in the 90s when it was damaged by a passing lorry and was given to the local museum. Recent Heritage Lottery funding was allowed the teapot to be restored, and in March 2020, this committee approved the erection of the teapot on the front elevation of property in Russell Street. This permission was not enacted and is now proposed to erect the teapot on the front elevation of the Charlemont Arms Hotel. The property is located within the city centre and the Armagh Conservation Area, but it is not a listed building. It is, however, adjacent to a listed property. Officers in consultation with the Historic Environment Division are of the opinion that the erection of the refurbished teapot will not have an adverse impact on the host building or any of the neighbouring listed buildings, and that it will enhance the character and appearance of the conservation area, given the teapot's historic links to the city centre. Officers are content that the development is sympathetic to the built form and is acceptable in regards to its scale, form, detailing and materials. Views within, into and out of the conservation area will be protected and maintained. Accordingly, officers are content that the proposal accords with the policies contained within the PPS 6, the SPPS and Section 104 of the Planning Act. Therefore, officers recommend that members grant planning permission, and I'll just take you through a PowerPoint. So we're located right in the centre of Armagh City. That's our application site. And that's the aerial photograph of it. And that's a close-up. So we're just opposite the North-South Ministerial Building. Next slide, please. So this is the Charlemont Arms Hotel and its associated bar section known as Turner's. And it's sorry, go ahead, Patricia. That's a close-up of it. So the teapot will go to the left. You'll see an existing lamp attached to the third floor there, and it'll just go on just beneath it. Next slide, please. So that's a elevation showing what it'll look like. And
Next slide. That's what it looked like when it was last up in Armagh and Scott Street, and that should be us. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Trudy. And I suppose this stage, I state that I'm a member of the Townscape Heritage Committee in Council, but I'm approaching this with an open mind. But I just want to get that on the minute also. So, members, we'll take any questions now. We have any? Any have been brewing? But don't see any. Councillor Cosby.
Just for the record, I speak on behalf of the committee. We would just say to you, Mr. Chairman, to pot with all your puns.
Okay. It's a good response there, Councillor Cosby. A good one. Okay, any other comments or puns? I will take puns now. I don't see any. I don't see any hands up either, so we'll move on to the debate phase. Okay, I don't see. We're happy enough with this teapot by the looks of it, so I'll move into the decision phase. We could, Alderman Barr.
I think Chair brings fantastic historical significance to the area, and it'd be good to get a cup of tea in Armagh for a change and a glass of apple juice. But happy to propose.
Thank you, Alderman Barr. Councillor Wilson.
Yes, Chair, happy to second the proposal.
That was just under the radar there, Alderman Twyvell. Your spouting pun, was that one there? Very good, very good. Okay, any other comments? Thank you. Okay, that's grand. We'll move on then to Appendix 13. Sorry. Oh, Sam, yeah, Sam must have come back. I'm too quick there. Just wait till Sam comes back. We spared you the puns there, Councillor Nicholson. Okay, we'll move on then to Appendix 13. Sorry, Alderman Barr, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, for bringing me in. I'd like to declare non-pecuniary interest in the play park. I brought council officers back in 2016, 2017 out to the location to visit it, and then obviously subsequently onto the play strategy as well as the consultation during COVID. So I'm going to remove myself from the meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay. Okay then. So while our lights on, so Liam, this is one of your applications, so you're free to start when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. This application seeks full planning permission for the relocation of a play park to a new site 125 metres north. The proposed new play park is to be set out mainly in safety servicing and porous texture bitmac. It is proposed to install a 2 metre high well mesh fence around the perimeter of the proposed play park. It will have 12 number pieces of play equipment. It is also proposed to install litter bins, seating and picnic tables. The application also seeks permission for works to protected trees, and an exhaustive list of the proposed works to protected trees is contained in the schedule of the proposed tree works. In terms of the principle of development, the application site is located within the settlement limit of Guildford, as defined in the area plan. The application site is also located within a major area of existing open space and is also located within a local landscape policy area. Policy OS 1 of PPS 8 states that development will not be permitted where it will result in the loss of open space. The existing site is currently a children's play park, and the proposed site to be developed is currently a basketball court. PPS 8 defines both children's play areas and the basketball court as open space, and therefore the proposal retains the use of the site for the open space function. The application site is located within the local landscape policy area in the setting of Guildford Mill. The features that contribute to environmental quality, integrity and character of the area are the river corridor and associated planting and industrial heritage of the mill complex. Officers are content that the proposed development will not adversely affect the intrinsic environmental value or character of the LLPA. The proposed site to be developed is located approximately 325 metres from Guildford Mill and 150 metres from the river corridor. Officers are content that there will be negligible impact on the features of the LLPA. In this regard, officers are content that the principal development is acceptable. In terms of access and parking, the application site seeks full planning permission for the relocation of a play park. It is proposed to utilise the existing access arrangement and parking provision. Officers in consultation with DFI Roads, who are the competent authority in matters of road safety, have raised no objection to the proposed development. Members are advised that it's anticipated that a considerable number of users will be local residents who will access the park on foot or via the existing riverside walkway. Officers consider that the proposal will not prejudice road safety or significantly increase the flow of traffic, and therefore it complies with the SPPS policies AMP1 and AMP7 of PPS3. In terms of impact on residential amenity, the closest dwelling is located approximately 50 metres east of the site at Woodlands. Officers in consultation with the Council's Environmental Health Department are of the opinion that the proposal will not have an unacceptable adverse impact on the amenities of people living nearby. In terms of impact on the historic environment, officers in consultation with the Historic Environment Division are of the opinion that the proposed development is far enough removed from the listed buildings so that it will not have an unacceptable adverse impact on their setting. In terms of impact on protected trees, Woodlands Park is protected by a blanket TPO, which includes the trees in close proximity to the proposed site for the relocated play park. Officers in consultation with the council tree officer are content that the proposed works to the trees are required for the maintenance and longevity of the TPO trees and also to minimise the health and safety risk posed by the trees overhanging the proposed play area. In terms of natural heritage considerations, an ecological statement was submitted in support of the application. The conclusion of that was it was considered that the proposed development would not have any significant impact on the adjoining woodland or any other priority habitats. Officers have considered the ecological statement in the context of Planning Policy Statement 2, policies NH2 and NH5, and are content that the proposal is not likely to result in any unacceptable adverse impact or damage to known priority habitats or protected species by law. So therefore, in conclusion, officers are recommending approval of this application subject to the suggested conditions. Let me just take you through the PowerPoint. So this is the location of our site within the general area of Guildford. This is a aerial view of the site, if you can just make out the existing play park. This is our site location plan. The site layout plan. These are elevations of the various pieces of apparatus. So this is a view into the existing play park, which is in the lower section of the site, down beside the football pitch. And this is where the new play park will be created, which is actually functioning as a basketball court at the moment. And these are some of the TPO protected trees that are in the vicinity of the site. And that's just a view from the site looking back towards the main road there, the access point from down into the Woodlands development. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Liam. Members, we'll take questions for Liam at this stage if we have any, or observations. Councillor Savage.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks for your report, Liam. Liam, just on the issues of the trees, you know, the area is called Woodlands for a reason, and there's plenty of trees there. Was there any concern at all about the impact that any fallen trees or anything might have on the park going down the line? Is it the tree officer, is he content that there's no discernible safety risk with the current location, or is there going to be some work carried out the trees will be pruned back or anything, or what are you aware of? Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Sanders. Yeah, there were a number of recommendations in the arboriculturist report that was submitted with the application, which was basically to prune back and a lot of the trees, particularly those ones that were likely to be overhanging the proposed relocated play park. So there's a substantive amount of works to the existing trees were proposed. Our tree obviously looked at it, and officers within the development management team looked at it, and were content with what's been proposed in terms of safety and indeed the protection of the TPO trees.
Councillor Lavery online, thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for that presentation. My question's in relation to cycle stands. I know previous applications have come to committee relating to play parks, some including cycle stands on site, including the one recently for Kiernan there. I was looking through the application document and couldn't see a reference to cycle stands. Could Liam just confirm whether cycle stands are considered as part of this application, or something that could be maybe installed on site within the near future? I'm just aware that a lot of children would cycle to and from play parks, and sometimes the bikes can end up scattered rather than maybe parked up in cycle stands if they're available. So just that query on cycle stands, Chair.
Okay. No, Councillor Lowry, there's nothing within the context of the application that proposes cycle stands in this case. So no, there's nothing that has been proposed.
Okay, Councillor Nicholson.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman, and thanks, Liam. And Liam, obviously, thanks for your presentation. I have a couple of questions here in relation to this. And I know you said that obviously it's envisaged that it is surrounded by houses, and there'll be a lot of people in those houses would be using this. It is a substantial play park. It's 20 metres by 25. It's quite big in the context. And just clarify, how many car parking spaces are available close to the play park? Because in my experience, parents like to drive to the actual edge of the play park, and if they've got a young child, it could be left in the car while an elder brother or sister's playing, and therefore they can keep an eye on the car. So that was my experience I've had with play parks. So one of the bigger ones, I'd say, in some of the play parks in the area. But look, just the thought process in that, Liam. And the other thing is, what's the plans for the existing play park? Because obviously, looking at the photographs, it's a grass area. It's surrounded by fencing. Is there plans for anything to do with that? So thank you. Thanks, John.
Okay, Liam. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Nicholson, the way the car park is at the present time, it doesn't have designated car parking spaces. It's just an area of hard standing. So we don't have a specific number in terms of available car parking spaces. I suppose the thought process behind the application was there was an existing play park there, and we're replacing that with a new one. And when we consulted with DFI Roads, we felt that the existing car parking provision that was available on the site wasn't going to be diminished and was acceptable for the car park as proposed. I suppose in terms of the existing play park that's there and what's happening to it, basically it's going to be grassed over again and just return to a informal grassed area. It will become again open space as part of the wider sort of woodlands area of open space.
Yeah, thanks, Liam, for that. And I suppose I do agree with your sort of summary, but this play park is maybe twice the size of the ones existing, if you know what I mean. I'm not sort of saying that it won't, but in my experience, just that when you build something of this scale, they'll come from everywhere to go to it. And the last thing we want is create a problem in that area with parking. And yourself, it'll be the the Guildford councillors will be getting it in the years, you know. So like it's just something that maybe to bear in mind. That's all. Just that to be noted, Chairman. That's all really. So thank you.
Okay, Councillor Lavery, your hand is back up again. I'll take your comment there.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's just to come back in on the cycle stand question for Liam. Is that something that could be dealt with at this stage via condition, or is that something that will just have to be considered and by the play team there if they do want to carry out a minor upgrade? Is this something we can sort out at this stage? Because I do think new cycle stands would be useful at all play parks, and has been made reference. This would be a bigger one and would probably be well used by kids of the wider Guildford area. So Liam could just provide some clarity as to how, if members are inclined that cycle stands are needed, well, this could be something resolved at this meeting, or will it take, just if this application is confirmed, then following up with the play team and so on through that avenue?
All right. Yeah, Councillor Levy, there's nothing in the proposal as things stand at the moment for the cycle stands, as I've said. I mean, it wasn't part of the strategy that was submitted as part of the application. I suppose if the council, I don't think we could deal with that by way of a condition in terms of this planning application. However, I mean, if the council wanted to look at that after potentially this application being approved, I mean, we can certainly look at it in that context, but it wouldn't be as part of this planning application.
Yeah, I suppose, Councillor, that's something you could probably raise, outside of this committee and maybe within the leisure format, in terms of any additional facilities or proposals around the actual offering that is on site or proposed to be on site in Guildford. Any other comments, members? Okay, I'll move to debate. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, this is much welcome. I think anybody can see from the presentation here with the existing play park. I call it play park in the loosest sense of the word. It's in an awful state of repair. And this I'm sure will be most welcome. Understand concerns obviously with parking, but having a few meetings with residents on the site over a few different matters, I think there's potential there to address any parking issues or possibly cycle stands and everything. There's plenty of potential there in the future that we could look at, but this application and hopefully approval is, I think, most welcome. Thank you.
Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Chair. And just like Liam gives a very comprehensive report. Like the area where Woodlands is located, the topography doesn't lend itself well, and they've done plenty of work in ensuring that they've looked at everything in relation to the site. I do take on board Councillor Nicholson's point about parking, but in the terms of the play scheme, this is a local park, so hopefully that will not be an issue. Most residents in Guildford will probably walk to it, and I'm not so sure. It will not be on the scale of Gosford, Solitude, or Scarborough possibly. So I think, maybe it will just be people on foot or kids on bikes. So, in terms of Councillor Lavery's point about bike stands, that's something that can be looked at going forward. I think if the committee are minded to approve this application, it's something that needs to be got moving quickly. As Alderman Barr said before he left, he's been lobbying for it since 2016, and all the Banbridge councillors, I'm sure, have been lobbied over the years to get to the stage. So, I very much welcome that application, and hopefully the recommendation will be endorsed by the councillors. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Nicholson.
Yeah, look, thanks, Chairman. Look, I just want to make my comments noted, and I'm happy enough. Look, I think as a scheme, it's part of an overall strategy of the council, which again has, sort of refurbed or replaced so many play parks all over the area for the community benefit. In particular, it's great to see so many pieces of accessible equipment. And this is something that, we maybe don't see as much in some of the play parks that come through this committee, but I have to say I welcome. There's 3 or 4 fully accessible pieces of equipment, which obviously will be a delight to my colleague, Councillor Flaherty. So, and obviously all those parents and things that obviously want to be able to benefit from this facility. So I think it's, you know, it's fantastic for Guildford, you know, and as I say, I was only making the point of my experience, you know, in relation, because it is something that can cause trouble, but I will leave that to the Guildford DEA councillors, and they can sort that out down the line. So thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Lavery and then Councillor Cosby.
Thank you, Chair. I would concur with the previous comments made. I'd agree that approval is the right option in this case and would bring a lot of benefit to those local kids in the wider Guildford area with this long overdue play park upgrade. Certainly, I think that the issue of cycle stands is something that can be taken forward, and not just maybe in this play park, but making sure all play parks in the borough have safe cycle access. So can take that forward at a further stage, but I'd certainly be content to support approval of this, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cosby.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And it would be remiss of me, because I know that this has been lobbied on for some time, particularly as part of the play strategy. And it would be particularly remiss of me not to mention our late friend, former Alderman Junior McCrum, who raised this issue on many occasions, and I know this would be one of the projects that he would have been delighted to see through, and that wasn't to be. So I just want to put that on record. But just to say, look, from my perspective, looking at Guildford still sits within the Department for Communities Areas at Risk programme and is in receipt of monies acknowledging that there are challenges in Guildford. And that is at times to do with deprivation, health inequalities and all of those things as well. And this scheme is a way to help bring a facility and make good quality, accessible play facilities available to children, young people and families in the area, with good links along the river walk there, and accessible in terms of a short walk from substantial areas of built-up housing. So I have to welcome it, but I just wanted to put on record the work and effort that former Alderman Junior McCrum also put in on this.
And that is duly noted and well said, Councillor Cosby, and I know the committee would concur wholeheartedly with those remarks. We'll move to decision phase then. I don't see any other lights. So Councillor Savage.
Thank you very much, Chair. And by no surprise, I'm happy to propose that we accept the recommendation as outlined in the report. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, happy to seconds that proposal. This will be most welcome. Thank you.
Okay, then we'll move on then to Appendix 14. There's another discharge of condition. So Kyle Elder is the officer responsible for this one. So Kyle, when you're ready.
This planning application seeks to discharge Condition 17 of Plan Approval LA08 2021-1467F, which was granted approval for 72 residential units at the Deanery in Armagh. Condition 17 of Plan Approval LA08 2021-1467F states, no development activity, including ground preparation or vegetation clearance, shall take place until a construction and environmental management plan camp has been submitted to and approved in writing by the Plan Authority. The approved camp shall be implemented in accordance with the approved details, and all works on site shall conform to the approved camp unless otherwise agreed in writing by the Plan Authority. The camp shall include the following: construction methodology and timings of works, including disposal of all waste, pollution prevention plan, including suitable buffers between the location of all construction works, storage of excavated spoil and construction materials, any refueling, storage of oil, fuel, concrete mixing, immersion areas, and any water courses or surface drains present or adjacent to the site. Parking of vehicle of site operatives and visitors, method of prevention of mud being carried on to highway, location of soil heaps and management of dust on site, site drainage management plan, including sustainable drainage systems, foul water disposal and silt management measures, and environmental emergency plan. The reason was to protect Northern Ireland priority habitats and species and residential amenity. So this application is required to go before the planning committee as it's seeking to discharge a condition of a major planning application. So officers have taken, members have read the report in full, and this is a synopsis only. So condition 17 was suggested by the Natural Environment Division of DAERA. The condition was deemed necessary to protect Northern Ireland priority habitats and species, to ensure the implementation of mitigation measures identified within the ecological assessment, and prevent likely significant effects on Lough Neagh and Lough Beg SPA, Ramsar site and Lough Neagh ASSI. In addition, the condition was also deemed necessary to protect the residential amenity of neighbouring properties. In support of this plan application, a camp has been provided. As discussed in detail in the report, officers consider that the camp has sufficiently provided detail in relation to each element of condition 17. Members are advised that DAERA were consulted regarding the camp, and both the Water Management Unit and Natural Environment Division advised that they are content for condition 17 to be discharged. So based on this, the recommendation from Water Management Unit and Natural Environment Division, and officers having considered the contents of the camp, are of the opinion that the obligations of condition 17 have been met in this submission, and therefore recommend that condition 17 is discharged. We don't have a presentation for this application.
Okay, thanks, Kyle. Okay, members, based on the fact we don't have a presentation, so we'll move straight to any questions you have for Kyle on this one. Any specific queries? Don't see any, so on that basis, and I know we do move quickly through discharges at times. Debate? Any debate? Any views, members? I'm not detecting any. On that basis, we'll move to a decision. Councillor Nicholson.
Yeah, Chairman, thank you, and thanks, Kyle, for the report. Again, very detailed and pretty straightforward. I'm happy to propose the recommendation, Chairman. Thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am happy to second that proposal.
Okay, on that basis, we don't have any other lights on or any other proposals, so we'll move on then to Appendix 15. And Kyle, it's yours again. So when you're ready, thank you.
This application seeks to discharge condition 5 of plan approval LAO 8 2021 1467F, which is at the Deanery in Armagh for 72 residential units. So condition 5 stated, the construction of the development approved herein shall not commence until a hard and soft landscape and open space management and maintenance plan has been submitted to and approved by the council. The plan shall set out the period of the plan, long-term objectives, management responsibilities, performance measures and maintenance schedules of all areas of landscaping and open space. It shall also set out details of the arrangements that would be put in place for the future management and maintenance in perpetuity of these areas, including details of the legal agreement between the prospective residents and management company, which are to be put in place as per policy OS2 of PPS 8. The landscape and open space management plan should be carried out as approved. And the reason for the condition was to ensure successful establishment and ongoing management and maintenance in perpetuity of the open space and amenity areas in the interest of visual and residential amenity. So again, this application is required to go before the planning committee as it seeks to discharge a condition of a major plan application. Officers taken that members have read the report, and this is a synopsis only. So condition 5 was deemed necessary to ensure that the developer fully complied with the requirements of policy OS2 PPS 8. In support of the application, a management and maintenance plan for areas open space, and the draft transfer deed for prospective purchasers of the development have been provided. Officers have considered the contents of these documents and are satisfied that the implementation of these documents will ensure the provision of the open space and their management and maintenance in perpetuity as required by Condition 5. So officers are of the opinion that the obligations of Condition 5 have been met in the submission and recommend that Condition 5 is discharged.
Okay, Kyle, thank you. Members, have we any questions for Kyle on this particular one? Councillor Nicholson.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. Kyle, thank you for your report. And it's just a general question about open space. See when obviously there's an open space left like in this development, does that then become zoned as open space in the area plan? So it's protected from development going forward? Or is there, it's just a question in general. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, so if at present this area of open space would be protected by policy OS1 of PPS 8. So obviously it would be down to the plan whether then it is adopted as open space in the plan, but it does have protections through PPS 8 and policy OS1.
Okay, any other queries for Kyle, members? Okay, don't see any lights on or hands up, so we'll move into the debate phase. Yeah, I'm not seeing any lights, so we'll move to decision phase. Mr. Nicholson.
Yeah, Chairman, thank you. Again, detailed report outlining obviously the reason for it in front of the committee. So I'm happy to approve, Chairman. So thank you.
Okay, Alderman Anderson.
Yes, happy to second, Chair. Thank you.
Any other proposals? Or? No, don't see any. Okay, members, we'll move on then to our final one, Appendix 16, and Sinead is taking this one. So when you're ready, Sinead, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This is also an application to seek discharge of a condition attached to a previously approved major application, hence why it's before the Planning Committee. The application seeks the discharge of condition 22 of LAO 8 2019-1419F, which required the submission of a final construction management plan and statement, providing for the parking of vehicles off site, operatives and visitors, routes for construction traffic, method of prevention of mud being carried out onto the highway, location of soil heaps, pedestrian and cyclist protection, proposed temporary traffic restriction, and location of all construction works, including refueling, storage of oil, concrete mixing and wasting, and washing areas, storage of machinery, materials, spoil, etc. And the reason this was attached was in the interest of community and the safe operation of the public road in the lead up to the development during the construction phase of this development. Also attached this condition for a final construction management plan to include how the site would operate in terms of construction traffic, location of soil heaps, traffic restriction, location of materials, etc. So it wouldn't have any implications for hydrological links to protected sites. A construction management plan is a working document which defines how the site will mitigate its potential impacts through the construction on the environment and indeed the local community. Officers are content that this construction environmental management plan, as set out within detail within the report, address the points required by the condition, and on that basis, we're happy to discharge this condition.
Okay, Sinead, thank you very much. Again, no presentation on this one, so we'll cut straight to any questions for Sinead on this particular one. Seeing any lights on this one at all? On that basis then, have we any debating points or any contributions? Okay, then we'll move straight to decision, members. Councillor Wilson.
I am happy to propose recommendation, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we a seconder or a contrary proposal? Alderman Anderson.
I'm happy to second, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you. So, based on that, that concludes our schedule of applications. So we're in fairly good time at 6 o'clock. So I wish you all a safe journey home, and I'll see you all next month. And we just have the live feed stopped at this phase.